Symbolic history through sight and sound. 3. Greece, the tragic myth and deed. Our aim is to see the fourfold pattern of God-given power, superhuman act, fall, and inner ripening, fulfilled in the myth and arts, the history and thought of Greece. If Greek culture excels them all, it is because it risked most of all. Its assault on darkness had no cover but the morale of its own phalanx. It countenanced none of the priestly protections of Egypt or the theological double-talk that has buttressed the Christian West. In act and mind, these men ventured on freedom, a city, as Pericles said, open to the world. They ventured in the open, man against fate. No wonder the fire so quickly burned its containment. As Heraclitus said, what are men but gods dying? What the gods but deathless men? Their mythology in this anticipates their history. Nowhere are there more legends of the fall of daring, and no people enacted it as nobly as they. For 3 biblical examples, Satan, Adam and Eve, the Tower of Babel, Greece affords dozens. 3 come to mind in the category of flight: Phaeton and the sun chariot, Bellerophon thrown from Pegasus, this Icarus from Roman Pompeii. Twilight of the culture Homer began. A pathos of history that the Periclean Zeus Poseidon holds the silence in which it rose from the sea. Since music, that art the Pythagorean brotherhood made a cosmic measure, of which witnesses attest the ecstatic power only survives unaccompanied in fragments of Hellenistic mood. This epitaph of Psychelos, like the Pompeian Icarus, reminder of a mythic fall. The fate of Hybris. Semele embraced Zeus in his divinity and was consumed. Niobe boasted against Leto and became a stone weeping for her destroyed children. Marsyas was flayed for vying with Apollo. Laocoon was killed with his sons by the serpents of Poseidon. Even the fate of Oedipus, as Nietzsche stresses, falls on one who had answered the riddle of the Sphinx. And among a variety of giants and titans who fought Zeus or tried to storm heaven, comes the greatest, Prometheus, who has given his name to all such attempts, the thief of fire, bound to the rock, a vulture's prey. These Greek accounts are not just more numerous than the biblical, they are different in kind. The Jews bet on Jehovah. The Greeks, 520 BC, Athena and the giant Enceladus play both sides, defiant will against avenging power. In that tension, tragedy is born, of the greatness which ennobles as it destroys. With Satan, only the name, light-bearer, and the line, O Lucifer, brightest of the sons of morning, how art thou fallen, give the scapegoat and serpent of evil a trace of ambivalence, Babylonian, where the Greek archetype is Prometheus. What then of classical measure? Is this an art of excess? Nietzsche's Dionysian joy even in destroying? Surely Greek daring arises in a cult of limitation, with all its tribal warnings against hubris. Even the Prometheus bound of Aeschylus is nominally on the side of Oceanus. Know yourself, and reform your ways to new ways. You are not yet humble, still you do not yield to your misfortunes. The chorus, as always, speaks the mean. It is a sweet thing to draw out a long life in cheerful hopes, and feed the spirit in the bright benignity of happiness. But I shiver when I see you wasted with 10,000 pains, all because you did not tremble at the name of Zeus. Your mind was yours, not his, and at its bidding you regarded mortal men too high, Prometheus. But before the play ends, both chorus and audience join in the pathos of the half-god's cry. bright light of the sky, and you with swift wings, winds, springs of rivers, numberless laughter of the waves of ocean, earth, mother of all, and all-seeing eye of the sun, look and behold what I from the gods here suffer, I who am born of the gods. O Dios aether, kai ta hypteroi pnoai, potamon te pegai, pontion te cumaton anerithmon galasma, pam me tor te ge, kai ton panopten kyklon heliu, kalo, ides themoia pros theon pascho theos. In that tragic involvement lies what Hegel called the deepest intuition of the human mind, that from suffering and destruction comes spirit, Oedipus as saving seer, Prometheus unbound, from the burning body of Semele, Dionysus, god of the vine, and tragic art, in the end of immortality. There is a profound trust here in vital seizure, human or divine, as in this rape of Ganymede. So, in the last chorus of Antigone, Dionysus, son of the Thunderer, born of Iachos, god of many names, is invoked for the cleansing of Thebes, though the purification that immediately falls is the death of Antigone, of Haemon, and of Creon's queen. Come with clement feet down the long slopes, thou Son of God, blaze for us. A chorus of breathing fire. Io pur pneonton corar gastron, to the manic lord, ton tamian yak hon. Even Plato, unwilling celebrant of the irrational, praises in the Phaedrus madnesses which are divine gifts. Again, where plagues and mightiest woes have bred in certain families, owing to some ancient blood-guiltiness, there madness has entered with holy prayers and rites, and by inspired utterances found a way of deliverance for those who are in need. Thus the Bacchae, sacred destroyers, an ultimate mystery for Euripides. And it is in the language and image of those mysteries, this 2nd century A.D. Alcestis harrowed from the grave by Hercules, as no doubt the chant of the synagogue, absorbing the classical hymn, as Here to the Sun by Mesommedes, Hadrian's favorite, rounded toward Gregorian, that the Bible tragically regenerated itself, completing the old Adam with the new, the tree of redemption from the tree of the fall, Moses lifting the snake on the cross to heal the sickly Hebrews, Jonah jubilant from the death and hell whale. Had not Tacitus weirdly recorded of the year 34 A.D. how the phoenix had been born of its ashes in the east? But before the regenerative daring, which appears at the beginning of Greek culture and ripens like a natural fruit, could mediate for the New Testament, it had to run its Hellenic course. There we follow it, in art and history, the tragic myth completed by the tragic deed. As Plato says in the Laws, we will not need tragedy in our city because we live in tragedy. Telemachus is amazed at the palace of Menelaus. See what a blaze of polished copper and gold and electrum and silver and ivory goes through this echoing hall. Surely the mansions of Olympian Zeus must be like this, one great glory within. The fateful sequence began before Homer with the fruiting of Greek myth out of the Cretan and Mycenaean fall. It is that past, going back even to Knossos and the East, that is treasured in epic memory. In the Odyssey, the bards already sing of Ilium. Menelaus' gift, a wrought mixing bowl of solid silver doubled with gold about the rim, work of Hephaestus, or the cup of wrought gold Alcinous gives Odysseus, Book 8, might have been found in the Vaphio tombs, Sparta, with the golden beakers of bulls, tame and wild, work of Hephaestus indeed. These were also objects of trade or pillage, probably Minoan, about 1500 B.C. But for Homer, fine things come from Syria. The king of Sidon, says Menelaus, gave it to him. The Dorian invasion has erased the possibility of such workmanship in Greece. We can never know what details from the Homeric poems are storied antebellum splendors. Ritualistic dependence on the gods seems essential for tribal Achaeans of a time of troubles. How the Iliad from beginning to end reeks with the smoke of sacrificial hecatombs. But for an illustration, we must go to Crete from the time of the Trojan War itself, Hagia Triada, observing, however, that the male-oriented Greek would take over what is here the priestess role. Curious that the names of the goddesses, Athena and Hera, called as if she were ivory of the white arms, like the wonderful Greek word for the sea, thalassa, are not Greek at all, nor Indo-European. Hera's wedding to Zeus must fable some blending. Athena's owl and Apollo's snake suggest a mystery route beneath the Olympian, and the first Greek art ties to this Cretan past, to which Homer seems so richly near. And if the Boston ivory must prove a marvelous fake, is it not, as Alexandrian editors smoothed Homer to their taste, that we later romantics hail our own Schubertian refinements as pre-Homeric Greek? For there was a refinement to which Homer was heir, the frescoed palaces of Pylos, Tiryns, Mycenae, Thera. Could the poet's own time have supplied him with that Helen, who in the Odyssey comes from her high-coffered, incense-laden room, and after alluding to her Trojan vagary, mixes in the wine a pleasure-drug of subtle potency which she had from Egypt? Yet for Homer all that waned luxury is caught up in another view of life, another bareness, and another drive. What is in fact contemporary with Homer focuses the question, which age does he reflect, sunset or dawn? Dawn came earlier to his Asian Miletus than to mainland Greece. Against the human fullness of the Iliad, the Attic funeral vases of 800 B.C. seem strangely abstract. Yet the geometric patterns shared with the Hallstatt culture of the Danube may remind us of the primitive in Homer. Those repeated epithets, swift-footed Achilles and the like, all the great formalities of saga craft, which led Coleridge to say, "There is no personality at all in Homeric poetry," and, "Of course there was a Homer, and 20 besides." For between Helen and her bard had come the Iron Age of stern reversion. This 8th century Sardinian god-chief might step from any Pelasgian island to voice what Nietzsche called the satyr wisdom. Condemned to sorrows and to toil we live, rest to our labors death alone can give. Hesiod, from barren Attica. Or the proverb echoed by Theognis and Herodotus and Sophocles, best of all things not to be born, next best to pass as soon as possible the gates of Hades. That pessimistic ground sounds under Olympian Homer. We, to whom Zeus has assigned a suffering from youth to old age, suffering in grievous wars till we perish to the last man. Since among all creatures that breathe on earth and crawl on it, there is not anywhere a thing more dismal than man is. Something lifts the Greeks from that ground, sends them, even as they chant its burden, smiling into battle over the wine-dark sea. The heroes to be broken by the gods in that poem of force fight the gods themselves. Apollo cries in the voice of alarm, "Give back, son of Tydeus, and strive no longer to make yourself like the gods in mind, since never the same is the breed of gods who are immortal and men who walk groundling." What makes Homer